It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on a Tuesday night. Hey, it's the Andy and the Remington Steel Show for your home delight. Talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. That's it, it's the Andy and the Remington Steel Show on a Tuesday night. It's the Andy and the Remington Steel Show for your home delight.
Delighting the homes of our viewers for this, our 41st episode, folks. It's the Andy and Rem Show. And look who's back after a 2-week absence, Mr. Remington. You going to explain why you've been AWOL to all these people?
Yeah, what have I been doing? I've been so busy at work, but we're on Easter holidays now. Yeah, it's been absolutely crazy. And I've not been able to do the show for the last couple of weeks, so I'm really sorry. I know you all miss me, and the viewing figures drastically went down, clearly. But I'm back. I'm bad and better than ever, so I'm ready to rock with this thing. We've got a fun-filled, fact-filled quest.
Let's not get carried away now. I'd hesitate to use the word fact when describing this show. So did you catch the previous 2 episodes that you missed?
I got bits and bobs. I mean, I got bits and bobs of it, yeah. Just listening out for my name, basically. Seeing if you'll miss me.
Well, not much chance of that. So let's look at who's in the audience tonight, shall we? Because, as always, it's a packed house. So we've got Amy Snuggs, Dan DeYoung, Eric's Coins, Fluffy Dread, Gloom Dready Gaming, 2 dreads in a row right there. Jay Young, MC1 Gamer, Mickey Jenver, Mirkwood, Rhino of Pleasure, Skeleton Flower, Slough Witch, which I think is a new one, Tabathist23, and, of course, YouTube Newbie. Those are all the active users, according to YouTube. So, shall we dive straight in? Or shall we... let's warn the audience, first of all. As you can possibly hear, I've been affected with Nurgle's rot recently. Afflicted, shall we say. And if my voice gives up halfway through, you probably just have to listen to Rem for an hour. And I wouldn't wish that fate on anybody, to be honest.
Get lost. I'm just reading comments here, Andy. Someone says I've got a lesbian haircut.
Okay, then.
Yeah? What's all that about?
There's a rumour for the internet.
Yeah?
Run wild with that one.
This is the new style, guys.
So let's dig in, shall we? Because we've got plenty to discuss on this show tonight. Here we go. First things first. I'm not going to dwell too much on these guys, but we've got the nice full 360 images of these Chaos characters now. So here's the one with the helmet. Very dangly, I think you'll agree. And look at that Stormcast head on there as well.
Nice. I like that. I like it a lot.
And do we have a 360 of the bearded version? I don't think we do. That's not very good, is it?
Well, yeah, it's all right. I don't think the beard and the hair is painted as well as it might.
It's nice, but it's not very nice that they don't give us a 360 view of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of skulls on there, though. You know, they're back to the skulls.
They are. There's the old sprue. Very exciting. Now, Exalted Deathbringer. Shall we have a quick look at his rules before we move on? Now, I'm not sure if I should even try and go through all this with the way my voice is at the moment, but I'll go for it. Roaring in triumph as he spears his foe through the torso, the Exalted Deathbringer hoists his victim high with a single muscular heave. The weight of the enemy's own body drives them further onto the impaling polearm, pushing the blade ever deeper with each convulsion. Before long, another impressive trophy is added to the Deathbringer's grisly collection. Well, he's got quite a lot to live up to there with that description, hasn't he? 5 attacks, that's not a bad start. 3+3+, a little bit of rend, 1 damage on each one. But let's have a look at the special rules. So, first of all, he makes 2 additional attacks while he's within 12 inches of a Khorne general. So that's quite nice already, up to 7 attacks. And then his spear. Roll the dice when an enemy hero is wounded by an impaling spear but not slain. On a 1, 2, or 3, nothing happens. 4, 5, or 6, the hero suffers a mortal wound. Right, so there's a possibility of just slapping extra wounds onto a hero with this guy. Command ability. If this model is your general and uses this ability, all mortal Khorne units within 12 inches can use his bravery characteristic instead of their own. And if there is a unit from your army within 1 inch of the Exalted Deathbringer when he uses this ability, you can inflict D3 mortal wounds on that unit to increase its range from 12 to 24. Right then, so if you really want to spread out the effects of this, you have to sacrifice some of your own troops. I'm not sure how valuable that is, really, sending them up to Bravery 8. What do you think? In the games we've played, Battle Shock, it's played a role, but I'm not sure whether a point of 1 on an army that's probably got a lot of low wound models in it.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to help them out too much.
Yeah, it's about, with the what are they called? Those chaos guys, where there's loads of them in the box.
All of them.
Oh, come on. The guys they're supposed to be a leader of.
The blood what's-its.
Not blood warriors. Blood something.
Yeah, they're all blood and skull something.
Well, the normal blood guys, I think it's for them because their bravery is probably pretty low. So it could be worth it. I mean, I think they tend to run off quite easily. But I like this impaling spear rule. That looks like good fun. I'm just trying to imagine trying to impale your dwarf hero.
Yeah, one thing maybe I didn't make clear is that you can keep repeating this if it keeps wounding him. So it's a possibility that you can just keep adding wound after wound after wound onto a character. And you already have 7 attacks possibly to start it off with. So it is pretty tasty. Not sure about the value of that command ability. It's okay. Nothing too exciting though. Let's move on to the Aspiring Deathbringer, shall we? Because the Slaughter Priest, there's already another model for that, so we'll have already been over those rules in the past. So let's look at the Aspiring Deathbringer first, with Gorax and Skullhammer.
Blood Reavers. They've only got Bravery 5, sorry, Andy. But with Bravery 5, I think that could be a big factor.
Yeah, maybe. If you're boosting it up by 3, I suppose it's quite good. Maybe it's just the games we've played, it wouldn't have helped that much. But we haven't really been playing with too many low bravery armies, have we?
Nah. I mean, that bravery is like worse than goblins, isn't it? That's pretty bad. Oh, this guy looks all right. He looks a bit stunty, doesn't he?
He's bulky, all right. All that armor on there.
I mean, that'd be a right drag, wouldn't it? Like carrying them 2 ginormous weapons across the Chaos Wastes just for a battle.
I don't think they really mind, these warriors of Khorne. That's pretty much what they live for, isn't it? Or maybe he has a mule that just carries his weapons for him. I don't know, he doesn't look like the kind of guy that would let someone else carry his own weapon, though. You wouldn't catch him using the wheels on a suitcase when he's going through an airport, would you? He'd just be carrying that bad boy in his hands. So let's have a look at his rules. And there's going to be a juicy description of him as well. The blood god's contempt for cowards is personified in those aspiring deathbringers who hunt the weak, striding forward with menace in every step, their twisted snarl hidden by a death's head mask. These butchers strike the fear of Khorne into their victims. Those that show even a flicker of doubt are mercilessly slain and left to rot where they fall. Well, let's see if that's in fact true. So he has the Gorax and the Skullhammer, which look to be very, very similar on the surface, 3 attacks with each one, and the hit and wound are just reversed, so it works out exactly the same. Let's have a look what they do, if there's any special rules for them. So abilities, nothing infuriates this champion more than to see cowardice, blah, 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 blah. If any enemy models flee within 8 inches of the Aspiring Deathbringer in the Battle Shock phase, this model can, at the end of that phase, pile in an attack as if it were the combat phase. That is tremendous.
That is really cool.
If you get him into a combat or near a combat where you know there's going to be a lot of casualties, so the enemy are probably going to have at least one model flee from the battle shock. This guy just gets to attack again.
What if he's already in combat?
Then he can just attack again.
That is really good, then. Yeah. Yeah, how many attacks has he got? 3?
Well, he's got 6 in total. So they're pretty good. Let's have a look at his other ability, though. Slaughter Incarnate, his command ability. So if you use this, you can add 1 to the attack characteristic of all melee weapons used by mortal Khorne units in your army within 6 inches of this model. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Slapping an extra attack on everybody nearby.
Yeah, I've heard people mention that they think there's going to be a new kind of Chosen. Because you had Chaos Warriors, and then the elite ones are called the Chosen. And I think that's what you're seeing with these guys. These are sort of like the Chosen of the Bloodbound, if you like, aspiring to be more deadly.
Right. So, of course, he is mortal Khorne as well, so you would assume that applies to himself. You would think. And, of course, as usual, it's just the unit has to be within 6 inches, not the model. So if you've just got a lot of units kind of snaking their way towards him, then lots of people could benefit from that. And with rules like this, you're going to throw him right up there with the rest of the units anyway. So you're not going to have trouble getting him into combat. So have a look at this new Slaughter Priest model then. So the Slaughter Priest, the other one, was the one that didn't have a helmet, if I recall. The alternative Slaughter Priest. What do you think of this one? We were discussing last week that he definitely has some weight and some heft behind his swinging ball. What do you think?
I like it a lot. I like that swinging ball.
You think it looks like it's got a lot of weight behind it?
Yeah, I tell you, I wouldn't like to be on the end of that. That looks like, pretty tasty.
You're like a man with a bit of heft in his ball.
What's going on with the chat tonight? It's kind of a bit depraved. I think MC1 Gamer is, basically spreading rumours about me, my rock and roll lifestyle.
I don't think there's anything MC1 Gamer could do to increase the spread of rumours about your rock and roll lifestyle. I've already seen you on front pages. Let's have a look at the rules just to refresh our memories on what the Slaughter Priest can do. So he can pray, add 1 to the result, blah. So the result is 4 higher, prayer is answered, and he could potentially take D3 mortal wounds.
He doesn't really look like a priest, does he? He doesn't look priestly.
Yeah, well, you have to think this is Khorne here. So a Khorne priest, you imagine, would look like that.
I mean, the only priestly thing about him is the sort of Inquisitor kind of red, like the Spanish Inquisition. They used to wear that colour. That's the only kind of thing I can relate it to, being priest-like.
So his 2 prayers, one of them, if he succeeds, well, if he doesn't, it's bad for him. If he succeeds, then he could put D6 mortal wounds on an enemy unit, so that's nice. Or he could pick an enemy unit within 16 inches, and all models in the unit must run as far as possible towards your nearest unit. So that's nice for dragging the enemy closer to you. I remember us discussing this guy for the other model, so we're not going to dwell on him too much. Now, here's another new release. Bum, bum, bum.
It's here.
Check it out. Grand Alliance Order.
So what we're looking at here is a load of war scrolls, basically, that covers all the good, if you like, all the Order armies, like Wood Elves, Dark Elves, High Elves, Empire. Right?
It covers all the Order units that are currently out. So it'll be out of date within about 3 weeks, which is the unfortunate thing about these books.
I think it's nice to have them not in black and white, but in full colour and in a book, because we've been printing out war scrolls for our battles, which is all right, but it's kind of disposable. And there will be a time when I think the war scrolls won't be up on the website anymore. So having them in a bound book is probably a wise thing to do. I'm going to get one of these, I think. I got the Death one, which we both looked at, didn't we? And we liked it.
Yeah, the issue is, though, when you've got it in a physical form, we've seen already that war scrolls can change over time. So,
well, I don't think they'll change. I think they'll get new. They might get new models.
So you think once it's been committed to a book, that war scroll is never going to be touched again?
Yes.
Okay, anyone in the comments, if anyone has seen a war scroll that's been put down in print and then changed, let us know. Because I haven't actually looked in any of the books at the war scrolls. I've only used the printed out versions so far.
So
and the app.
Any fluff in this?
Well, let's see. It's your indispensable guide to the armies and factions of the Order at the dawn of the Age of Sigmar. It takes you through the forces of the Order with war scrolls for every miniature. It doesn't say anything about fluff that I can see right there. So I would imagine it is just a giant war scroll compendium with maybe a bit of brief text about each of the factions. Because look, you can see there it tells you a little bit about the Stormcast Eternals and some
right. So maybe get
war scrolls.
You get a page on each race, then.
I would imagine, and you'll have your little setup there, some graphs to show you to get your juices boiling up. £20. It's quite a reasonable price for a book that just has every war scroll in it. It's quite convenient. I mean, I've considered picking up this book at that low price, but again, I keep feeling like I should hold off and see what's going to be released next.
Yeah, no, I think it's worthwhile getting it. I mean, how many Order armies do you have? You've got Stormcast, haven't you?
Stormcast and Dwarves. So I would want to know, though, does this actually have the new Stormcast stuff in there as well, like the Star Drake? Does it have that war scroll in there? Because if it does, then why on earth would anyone buy the Stormcast Extremis book? Unless you really just love reading all the fluff and the extra scenarios that you get in those books.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I've got Dark Elves, I've got Wood Elves, I've got Dwarves. What else have I got? Oh, that's 3 armies to have the rules for. Bear in mind, 8th edition rule books for each army were like at least £20, weren't they? Probably more. 25 quid or something? Can't remember. So
Yeah.
having a 5 or 6 armies is pretty good. Oh, they're down there, aren't they? I can see them. Unlikely allies of the Seraphon. Are the Seraphon in here too?
Yeah, they are Order units. They are an Order faction, the Seraphon.
So would the Fire Slayers be in there too?
Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure. It says Stormcast Eternals in their Extremis chamber.
Yeah.
Dwarven elves devoted of Sigmar. Yeah, it's probably all in there, but just the war scrolls,
right,
for the most part.
That
So,
Sigmar looks fun.
yeah, it might be worth getting.
I always wanted to have like a giant army of flagellants, of like crazed bearded men whipping themselves into battle. And I think
You're not helping these rumors that are spreading around.
Why?
Never mind. Just carry on.
Right, is that the rumor that's going to happen?
Well, I did hear a rumor that you're into lots of crazy bearded men and whipping.
Well, you know what the new fashion is, don't you, with beards? I'll show you a picture in a bit.
Oh dear. So yeah, we'll get to what this means for the various factions of the old world in a minute, but I believe there's something that you want to show the world right now, a new section of the show that I am apprehensive about, but could prove to be entertaining.
And without sounding too much like a market trader, thanks YouTube newbie, I want to put in a new section of the show, and it's called "What the Hell Is That?" So basically, myself or Andy will show you a model. It'll probably be a blast from the past in the Warhammer pantheon of models from the last 30 years or so. Or it could be a model from a completely different company. Who knows? It could be a Reaper Bones model. It could be a Mace Miniatures model. More than likely, it's going to be a Games Workshop model. But you have a limited amount of time to think about what is that model and where was it from? Okay, so let's just put the screen share on.
All that build-up, this better be damn good.
Well, it's the first one. It's going to be all right. But, you know, there's going to be some smart ass that knows straight away. You know what I mean? And they'll ruin this big thing. So, what am I doing here? Screen share. I want to
By the way, whoever guesses it first gets a free Balsa Wood membership, which is the lowest membership level we have, but that's all we can afford to give away.
Balsa Wood. Okay, here's the first one. What the hell is that? Well, it's fair to say it's a dwarf, but where's it from?
Well, folks, who's going to be the one to get it?
Now, I'm in the middle of painting this guy. You can see he's not quite finished, but he looks pretty satisfied with himself on that bundle he's standing on. There's a good big clue.
He certainly does. So now that everyone's had a good look at it, let's put that away.
Okay, and I've got one more. We should do that later. Should we just do it one at a time?
Let's just do them both right now.
All right, so that is, what the hell is that, number one? And here's number two. What the hell is that?
Wah, wah.
And what's it from? What the hell is that? It looks angry.
It does look quite angry, doesn't it?
And he's wearing a rabbit helmet? Or a
Rabbit
head?
ears and a stick with ball and spikes on the end.
There we go. So number one.
Very
What
muscular
is that?
chest on that one.
And contestant number two. What the hell is that? There you go.
Okay, then. So, the Order Grand Alliance book, on the one hand, it's like they're giving us something new because they've actually made a couple of alterations to some of the units and war scrolls and keywords. On the other hand, several things have either disappeared completely or the models at the very least have disappeared. So, shall we go over to it's effectively a graveyard on the Games Workshop website. The graveyard known as the Last Chance to Buy section, where virtually everything is sold out. You can still get the High Elves Battalion if you really want it, or an Empire Battalion. But Bretonnian's gone, more Bretonnian stuff gone, some Empire stuff gone, Thorek Ironbrow gone, Prince Imric gone, Treekin gone. You can still get Malekith on that dragon that people generally dislike.
I can't see that lasting for very long though. But 8 pages of all things that are gone. You know, 8 pages with 12 items on each page.
Yeah, more dwarves and Bretonnian stuff here. Balthazar Gelt gone. Dwarf Bolt Thrower.
I mean, I've just finished painting Thorgrim Godbear, haven't I? And I even put one around base. So I'm out of touch already.
Kurt Helborg gone. Empire Free Company still there for now.
Yeah, probably.
Harpy's gone. Oh, what a shame to see them go.
The Dwarf Adventurers, they used to be good when they had a samurai dwarf among their number, but that got taken away a little while ago. So,
Flame Cannon gone. So it's mainly things that were in metal or fine cast that have completely gone now.
I mean, 8 pages, 12 different lines on each page. What's 8 times 12? Is it 96? Maybe 96 different models gone or about to go. So that either tells you the Games Workshop are going bust, or they've got a ton of new models to come out and replace these guys with.
Dwarf Lord on Shield Bearers still there for now. Empire Mortar gone. That was plastic. Miners gone. And there are a few things that aren't in the book apparently as well, in the order book, which include the Flame Cannon and Dwarf Miners, I'm told.
Yeah. Now, I can see this going 2 ways, Andy. Either one, these things are just like going to be like gold dust now to get, or people are just, I mean, because I scoured around eBay today looking at the prices of things, and they haven't gone up a lot with figures that you can't get anymore, but maybe they will. They'll go up again. There's demand for these guys, so who knows?
Dark Elves.
I mean, it's going to happen, guys, wasn't it? All this stuff was going to happen. They can't
Joseph Bugman.
still have these models on the shelves for so long.
Yeah, you can't keep supporting these products that they were making in a material that they don't really want to support, most of them. Like this Dwarf Lord, for example, metal or fine cast. They really want to move away from that and put everything in plastic now. They're not releasing anything new in fine cast.
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind, Games Workshop's competitors, they haven't been around for 30, 35 years. So, you know, you imagine War Machines and Hordes. What's the company that does them?
Privateer Press.
No, Privateer Press in 25 years' time. Do you think they'll still have their models being sold that were made 5 years ago? Probably not, because they'll have made another 25 years worth of models. So you can't be too upset about it. You know, sculpting techniques have moved on. There's different designers that have come in. They've got new races. So
yeah, I mean, I bought this Dwarf Lord about the year 2000. That's quite a lengthy run for a miniature, I would say.
And the thing is, not many new people are buying these models, are they? Because they're you know, if they wanted them, they probably already got them. You know, so they've got to sell to an existing market of enthusiasts.
So, also what this means, with some of the alterations they've made to War Scrolls and keywords, now that's greatly affected some of the synergies. And I hope this isn't going to put you to sleep like comp systems. But of course, Vince and Pals had a very lengthy 3 hours, I think it was, a show talking all about this stuff. But the gist of it boils down to certain armies have been compressed into smaller sub-factions, if you will, particularly some of the elves, where they're grouped together. Maybe there'll be a character with a specific keyword that only affects a small number of other units within the army. So you could still play them all together, but it's harder to create synergy with them if you varied it too much.
Right.
And then certain other armies, like dwarves, haven't been affected that much because the keywords are still essentially the same. And in fact, the way the War Scrolls look now, certain things that you couldn't do before, like the dwarves can now, the dwarf engineer can repair war machines from other factions now, which, as far as I'm aware, he couldn't do under the previous War Scroll.
How do you repair them? What, it gets wounds back?
Yes, he could only do it, as far as I'm aware, he could only do it to dwarf war machines before. I think that's right. And now he can just do it to any war machine. So if you want to stick some Empire cannons in your army and just have the dwarf engineer there to repair it, you can go nuts. And of the factions, the interesting one that you touched on, the Devoted of Sigmar, and lots of bearded men whipping themselves.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good faction to ally with the Stormcast, doesn't it?
Right. It does.
If they're going to go into battle with anybody, it would have to be someone who has unwavering devotion to Sigmar.
I'd like them to have a war machine, because the Sigmarites don't have a war machine, do they? So it'd be nice for them to have some kind of, I don't know, beard bomber? No? I don't know.
Beard bomber?
Maybe some incense, a giant incense bell thing that wafts like pure air and like detoxifies Nurgling's rot or something. I don't know.
Have you been inhaling a little bit too much incense vapor? So what do you think of them splitting down the factions then? So like in the Wood Elf, they've gone into 3 or 4 smaller factions, I think now. Do you think that's because, and obviously the new releases like the Fire Slayers, there aren't that many units in it. So they're comparable in size now to these sub-factions that they're splitting down.
Well, I think the idea behind all this is so you can just choose whatever you want to have in your army, pretty much. That's what it's about. Which is a good thing. More fun. You know, once the game moves on in a few years' time, and maybe people want to have bigger armies of the same faction and whatnot, but the keywords thing, I don't think that's going to be a big factor in years down the line. I really don't. It's already changed, doesn't it?
It seems like instead of them wanting you to have one huge army, they want you to have several small armies now.
Yeah.
So that you're not just waiting for your army to come out in the release cycle. It's just you're going to grab the next new thing. Because you don't have a huge variety of units anymore within your army. I mean, the Stormcast is looking like one of the biggest as far as variety of units goes now. And you wouldn't have thought that a few months ago.
No. No, well, Corn seems to have a lot of models choices now, doesn't it?
Does. So, have you looked at how any of these changes affect the armies that you own?
No.
We can always rely on Rem to do his homework on this show, can't we?
It don't interest me. It's like, use the models you want and then, have a look at the rules afterwards.
Yeah, the way we tend to play is pick the armies and the models that we like, make the army not exactly a list anymore, but put them down on the table and then figure out the best way to use them. Whereas
that's what a true tactician would do, Andy, wouldn't it? A true master.
There is the other approach, which is to go and create spreadsheets. And I think just the mention of that word got you snoring just then.
Yeah.
With all the various stats on it and the keywords overlapping, you can see which units affect what and whose chances of wounding go up by 0.5% if this unit's within 6 inches. You think that's a bit much for this game?
Yeah, it's way too much. There's other factors that involve where you're placed on the table, what the scenery does near you. Whose turn is it next? All these things come into play. Whether your thing that's giving other things ability gets shot off or magicked off. So you can't plan too much ahead.
Yeah, you can plan quite a lot out, and then it can, like you said, be completely ruined from something that just drops, let's say, 6 mortal wounds on you on a 2+. Can't think what unit could possibly do that though, Mr. Rem.
Yeah, but I think you got over paranoid about that.
I think you might have some idea.
I did the stats, and your dwarf war battery does way more damage turn for turn than a Thunderdusk through shooting attack.
Tremendous damage. But the thing is, you can get an armor save though against that stuff a lot of the time.
It's -2 rend.
Well, some armies can get a save from that. You're not going to be getting a save from a mortal wound unless you're one of a few very specific units that have that ability.
Are you trying to say, Andy, that I defeated your army not out of a tactical brilliance, but out of just an ability on a war scroll?
Well, I wouldn't possibly say that. I think the people have already made up their mind.
So Andy's referring, we were talking about a battle report that he just put up yesterday, which is awesome. We had a game last week. My amazing ogres against Andy's goblin green-based dwarves. Nice.
Green bases, it shows that you're old school and that you didn't just jump on this hobby as a bandwagon in the last 5 years. You were around when it was cool to paint all the edges of bases in goblin green.
Yeah, and if you're colourblind, then you'll probably appreciate it. If you're not, you won't.
I think that's a little harsh. So, that was quite an interesting game though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was made more interesting by the fact that my voice was slowly failing throughout the game, and I could feel the illness coming over me over the course of the day, which ultimately led to the cancellation and postponement of Andy Palooza / Remcon.
Shocking.
So I think maybe it was the Thundertusk that did it, I think maybe it directed a couple of mortal wounds at my immune system throughout the game.
So look, my tactics behind that game was to keep as much as all my important stuff as far away from your war machines as possible, because I know Andy likes to sit back with his dwarves and shoot everything down, and then synergize his heroes. So I was, come on, there was a bit of tactical nous that went on into my play there, Andy. You cannot deny it, and that little smile on your face just proves
There
it.
were plenty of tactics on display in that game. Have you got some pictures you want to show off, by the way, while we're discussing it?
Is everyone ready? Or no one's really talking about this. So anyway, I'll put up the pictures. They're probably all painting or looking at porn. Here we go then. Screen share. Sorry.
This is always the risky part of the show. So you know what? I'm going to focus the camera on me for a second until we've confirmed that Rem hasn't gone into one of his X-rated folders.
Come on. So they all want to see it.
They may want to see it, but I'm sure if someone flagged the video, it would immediately get taken down. Some of the stuff that you have in there.
Okay.
Oh dear, he's got all kinds of stuff in there.
Okay.
If only you could see it, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, go on then.
Okay, are you at least going to drag it so it's covering my face? Because what if I need to scratch my nose or something? There we go.
There you go. So, all right, look, here's said ogres. Look how beautifully they're painted, right? In the middle there, you've got the ginormous thunder tusk with the beast rider on top with a chain trap, and another one with a giant harpoon gun. On the right of them, you've got my 3 yetis, which I'm hoping to defy critics and show they can be of some worth. And on the left, I've got 3 iron guts. Why haven't I got more, you say? Well, the comp system we were playing, which didn't actually send me to sleep. It was quite good. You get 15 points, and those iron guts cost 2 points, and that's for 3. So if I got more, I would have really ate into my points tally, and I wanted to field as many different type of ogre units as I could.
You went with quite a lot of small-sized units.
Yeah.
Which, for something like an ogre army, is possibly a wise move, because it means that you're virtually immune to the effects of battle shock. Because if you're taking enough casualties to even be affected by battle shock, then the unit's as good as dead anyway.
Yeah. Now, what you have to remember with Age of Sigmar, taking big blocks of things when you've got a scenario that's based on getting to objectives is a really bad idea. So you need lots of small units so you can get into combat, soak up some artillery, and also reach your objectives without being completely annihilated before you get there. So, yeah, 3 iron guts, and they are amazing.
They are, actually. They are pretty beastly.
And, you know, oh, yes, of course, Brad the Gutsman on the right is the first time I've been able to field this ogre hero, and he's a specialist at taking down heroes, enemy heroes.
Yeah, you can see the gold there as well. That was we devised a scenario that was going to be completely even for both sides. Normally we have one side needs to achieve one thing, the other side has a different objective of some kind. But for this one, because we used that pool system to create perfectly even armies, then we wanted to have a scenario that was also perfectly even. Yeah.
So Bragg the Gutsman, he makes a good sort of second leader of your army. I made him the leader of my army, which wasn't really a good idea because he didn't really give any special abilities to other units and whatnot. But there you go. Yes, so you see I've got some of those gunner guys, lead belchers, and if you can get them actually shooting without being killed before they get to shoot, they're pretty good. But they don't have a very long range. So I had to get near to Andy to get in range, but that also meant getting in range of his dwarf gun line, which wasn't good. On the right of him, you've got an ogre hunter there. It's a cyborg miniatures Santa Claus that I've converted with 2 saber tusks. And on the left, we have 2, what they're called, those riders. Mornfang cavalry. Should have taken more of them guys, especially when facing Andy's gun line. Because even though they've got a lot of wounds, Jesus Christ,
those guns can dish out a lot of wounds as well.
Yeah, behind them I've got 3 man-eaters, and I gave them the stubborn rule just in case, and that meant they don't suffer from battle shock.
Now, you picked quite an elite army. Did you think about maybe putting in more weaker units, like just regular ogres, and having more models?
Well, with the comp system we're playing, those man-eaters at the back, right, they cost 2 points, okay? And a unit of 3 normal ogres costs 1 point. So I could have had 6 ogres or 3 man-eaters, but after converting those man-eaters and spending all time on them with the fruity rules they have, I'd much rather use the fruity models than the normal rank and file ones. So I went for, a fun list with lots of character.
But by the way, apparently Dreddy would prefer if you used 200 Noblars instead of these units.
Yeah. Well, I've got about 20 unpainted Noblars somewhere, but I only actually got 5 of the Trapper Noblars, and that wasn't enough to field as a unit, even though I think they cost half a point, but you have to field at least 10.
Well, we did find a way to get them into the scenario anyway, as people will have seen.
Okay, well, there's a little bit more of a close-up. You can see the magnificent ogre armor there.
And you only got my 40k posters in the background. You didn't capture any of my wonderful fantasy posters.
These are the said Noblars. This bit of scenery didn't really come into it. Perhaps we should have placed it a bit more centrally. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we pretty much avoided it, didn't we?
Yeah, but you see the Noblars there. They've taken residence in this place after running off with the Dwarven Eurogold and then running off from the gold because they saw the dwarves coming. That gave this building some mystical abilities, which only came into the play for Andy. I mean, you seem to be much better at using the positive abilities that terrain can give you than I do.
Yeah, I managed to get one of my units ensorcelled from the mystical effect on the terrain at one point, but they could have been befuddled, which is something that often happens to your unit.
Yeah, maybe I flirted with the idea of bringing some units round the outside, to maybe get to your gun line, but I didn't in the end.
Yeah, you didn't like the sound of that.
So here it is, and his dwarves taking up the centre. You've got the Trollhammer torpedo guy on the right. And
a nice blurry picture of the Iron Drakes there. I think they were quite poorly deployed in the end because they really didn't fire as much as they should have done throughout the game. No, they were in the centre and you didn't have anything in the centre up against them, so they had nothing to do.
I don't know why you didn't put your war machines there. Because they could have reached both sides of the table then.
Yeah, that's a fairly decent point you've made there.
Andy's Ironbreakers. As the light was coming through, it made it a bit difficult to photograph, but you can see he's fielding 20 of these little buggers. And I've learned in the past, I've got my fingers burnt, and I've learnt in the past not to engage these guys in combat unless they have been seriously depleted.
Yeah, with them ignoring rend and them having bonuses to their armor if you charge into them, basically, if they don't charge you, they're pretty tasty.
So you see Ulrich Big Butts on the right, the dwarf giant slayer. He's had a pretty pathetic career so far, managing to get himself killed in every single battle. And
yes, I think you took pity on him as well because you could have used the Thunder Tusk to just kill him in one go, but you didn't.
No, that's true. And he's got some of his dwarves have some pretty sticky special rules, which really literally bite you in the bum. On the left, what's your dwarf hero called again?
Belagar Ironhammer. You always fall prey to his attack twice rule.
Belagar's got a ridiculous amount of rules. Not only has he got a fairly decent basic stat line, he's got so many abilities which can really bite you in the ass.
Well, 4 attacks with each one potentially doing D3 wounds each, and then once per game he can just decide to attack again. So against the right target, that can be worth its weight in your gold, that ability.
Plus, he can give that attack again to a unit, can't he?
He can give an extra attack in melee against one of your units. So if I'm attacking that one unit with like 4 different units, they would all get an extra attack each.
Plus, he's got an oath stone, hasn't he? Something like that.
Yeah, he can plant the stone and allow people to use his bravery, which that's one of the times when it's not that useful, though, because dwarves, all of them have quite decent bravery, so they don't often need to use his.
Plus, the best of them all, he halves wounds put against him.
Yeah, that is amazing, actually.
So you put 6 wounds on him, which would kill most normal characters, and he'll only suffer 3.
Yeah, I mean, he only has 5 wounds to begin with, so it's not as big of a deal as if you were halving wounds on, let's say, a 16 wound monster, but it still helps out a lot.
Well, I did, in fact, put 6 wounds on him in combat. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, so here's some hammerers from Andy, and I think he's trying to match them up against some Mulfran cavalry, maybe, or the hunter.
Yeah, with the points restrictions, it was either going to be 10 hammerers and 20 ironbreakers, or 10 ironbreakers and 20 hammerers. And I went with more ironbreakers in the end just because I think they're cooler. Nothing tactical about that.
Could you have had 15 of each? Can you pay a half point? So
I don't think you can pay half.
Oh.
I think you any more than that, and you just have to buy an entire another selection in the pool, so it would have cost double, even if you only have 15.
All right.
I think. I'll have to check.
Okay, well, in the back there, you can see Andy's gun line, which is it's just astonishingly powerful. It's an organ gun on the right and a dwarf laser-guided cannon. And in between them, you've got a dwarf engineer who's giving them re-rolls, both war machines, re-rolls to hit.
Well, the cannon has re-rolls to hit, and the organ gun can re-roll on the roll to decide whether it actually fires in the first place. So, which means that you can just either fire 3 or 4 barrels without really worrying too much about it. Most of the time, you're going to succeed with the re-roll. Normally, you'd probably go for 3 barrels without the engineer, but then there's still a 1 in 3 chance of it failing to shoot. But with the engineer there, it just pushes it up, so it's very unlikely that it's going to fail to shoot.
And let's presume they both do shoot. Well, the cannon's got 2 shots, each one doing is it D6 wounds.
Yep, if they hit, which they at least one of them is going to with the engineer there.
And then it's like a 2 to wound, a 2 up to wound. Then, when Andy was rolling the D6 wounds, he tended to roll a 5 or a 6 every time he hit to wound. So it was, it wasn't very nice. And they've got a really long range as well.
It's not as long as war machines used to be. The cannon's 32 inches, the organ gun's 28. So,
well, plus
it's long enough. But I think, like you said, they would have been better off in the middle because they would have had a better choice of targets then.
Yeah, and then you can move them 4 inches and fire, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. And you know what I was thinking, though? Because of this scenario, the reason they're positioned there, I was thinking of the scenario and wanting to have units in each of those sections. So I wanted to put something in that corner to claim that area that wasn't going to move. So the war machines were the instant choice. But the fact I had an engineer meant that I wanted to have my 2 war machines next to each other, so I had to have them both in the same spot. So that was my thinking there. I didn't want to put them in the middle and have the war machines being the ones contesting the big central area. So that was my thinking there. So maybe taking less war machines would have been a better move for this particular scenario for that reason.
Yeah, or less ironbreakers and have another unit somewhere.
Yeah, maybe.
So this is the table from above. You can see the 2 forces laid out. And obviously, if you occupy that central position, then you get 2 points. And if you're occupying any of the 4 corners, you'll get an additional 1 point. So you want to try and get one of your corners and the middle one, and that should win you the game. But of course, you've got to get over there. You're going to get heavily shot at. So yeah, I kept my Thunder Tusk very far away from his gun line over there, and also out of range of his dwarf gun guys. I always forget what they're called.
Iron Drakes.
Yeah, the
Iron Drakes.
And the Yetis, I don't know, maybe it's like a reel back from the last edition. They used to be able to suffer double wounds if they got set on fire. In my head, I was trying to get them away from the war machines as well, which perhaps I shouldn't have, because they've got a movement of 9. So, yeah, and on the very far left, I've got Brad the Gutsman, which I put deliberately in front of his hero, thinking that I could, have a hero-on-hero fight and take him out. So as you can look at that splendid map there.
We've had a comment. Newbie says that your initiative rolls were excellent this week. So your rolls to get the first go each time. And the way it went was, I think we actually got 2 turns in a row multiple times. It was like alternating who would get 2 turns in a row for the whole game.
It's huge when you get that 2 turns in a row. On your second turn, you think you've won the game, and that was my feeling at one point in this game. And then Andy got the next turn and literally shot off everything on the right hand side of my table. And so this game can swing so quick back and forth. And so eventually I got the match up. I went forward. He kind of slowly trudged forward. Perhaps he should have been a bit more daring. But I was really confident I could take this guy, and I took the first attack, and I managed to get 6 wounds on him. And he then pulled out the rule, I only get half damage. And I was thinking, all right, well, I just need to survive the combat then. He's got 6 or 7 wounds. My my Bragg the Gutsman. And then Andy said, right, I'm going to use my, I get to attack you all over again, which he did, and promptly killed me.
Yeah, looking back, I'm not sure it was necessary for me to do that at that time, because it was going to be my turn next regardless. And I probably could have just decided to activate Belagar first and got to attack you before you attack me. So maybe I should have held off on that ability and used it later. Sometimes I'm a bit trigger happy with it because obviously you want to get it in there before he dies, otherwise it's just wasted. And because he was down to 2 wounds, I thought I should probably use it immediately. But looking back, I think I could have possibly saved it. And do you notice how the camera zooms in and focuses on Belagar? It obviously knows where to look here because, look, your guy's all blurry, the background's blurry.
All right, so I haven't taken a picture of the Thunder Tusk getting 6 wounds every turn, 6 mortal wounds every turn on your Ironbreakers, and in 3 turns he took out 18 of them.
Yep, only 2 Ironbreakers left before they even got to do anything. Outrageous.
So yeah, these guys, I couldn't really get in range to shoot these guys, and I tried to go forward with my cavalry, but as soon as it was Andy's turn, he decimated anything that was in range. So in retrospect, I should have just not even bothered with this side of the table and just stayed out of range of these guys. The cannon was in particular was devastating. Shot off my man-eaters, shot off my saber tusk and ogre hunter, and shot off the.
I think the hammerers killed the saber tusks, but the artillery killed everything else. Yeah, because actually there was an interesting situation that came up with the saber tusks because you were already in one combat on the other side of the table, and it was your turn, and you decided to charge the saber tusks into the hammerers, which meant there were 2 combats. And as you know, one of my golden rules of Age of Sigmar is when it's your turn, you want to initiate an odd number of combats because you're picking which unit activates first. So you have in one of the combats, you're deciding who goes first. And then in the other combat, basically I'm deciding because there's an even number. So that allowed the hammerers to strike first on the saber tusks. So you committed the cardinal sin there. Yeah,
which means they didn't get to it. I think they did get to attack, but they didn't do anything.
I don't think they did attack because you went. I think it was on the turn where Bragg the Gutsman was fighting Belagar.
Which I had to choose that fight first.
Yeah, and I think probably you shouldn't have charged in with the saber tusks because then at least they would have still been alive on my turn and given me more targets. You just basically allowed me to kill them on your turn just by charging them in.
Yeah, and saber tusks only have 2 wounds each, so if I did try and go for the cannons, they'd easily be killed off too soon.
They do present a target though that you've got to shoot at.
So this is the dead man-eater, and before he died, man-eaters have ogre pistols, which are pretty useful, and he was able to shoot off a couple of your hammerers.
Yeah, so many ogre weapons seem to have D3 wounds, don't they?
Yeah, they're brilliant. And the hunter threw his spear. I think he managed to kill a couple of couple of hammerers, and a couple of hammerers ran off in combat, didn't they? So I did manage to polish all them off.
I think the hammerers all got killed from the pistol, actually.
Yeah.
By the way, of the audience members that have come in late, only one person has actually apologised, so they're going to get a mention, and that's Ratface.
Ratface.
Who is sorry for being late.
I was really hoping I could do something special with this ogre hunter. Maybe like get in range and throw his spear at the war machine and impale it somehow. He has this special wall where he can run and throw his spear. But before I could do that, Andy got 6 out of his 7 wounds off him just with a cannonball.
That was quite funny, actually. So then you decided, the way his rule is written, you know how if you're throwing a javelin, like in the Olympics, you run up to gain momentum and then you throw it. But you took that to mean, I know, I'll just jog backwards away from you and use the momentum of that somehow to generate a more powerful throw.
So I ran backwards and tried to throw it, and then I think I probably missed the shot anyway. But at that point, with only 1 wound left, and with no abilities in my army to gain wounds back, I decided, hold on, the object of this game is to occupy table quarters and the middle, and I'm running out of units. So I thought I'll hang back and occupy one of the back quarters if I could make it, but he didn't. Because you picked out a rule where your cannon has got 2 attacks, right? So maybe you can get 2 different targets. So one cannonball killed my last man-eater, and the other cannonball killed my ogre hunter. So you were 2 units with 1 shot. So
it's something I hadn't done before, splitting up the cannon's attacks. So I did check online to make sure that's how people were playing it. And someone did quote a little bit of the rules where it says you can split up your attacks however you like. So I think it is pretty legit that you can just fire off 2 cannonballs in different directions.
Well, I think that's in combat you can do that, but I'm not so sure about shooting.
Yeah, it just says attacks. It's weird, but I think that's how it's intended.
I forgot about these guys.
Yeah, they got gunned down as well by the artillery.
I did have 3 of them, and I did manage to shoot off some hammerers with it once I got a shot off, which is pretty good. I think they do D3 wounds or something like that. But I did some stats in my head, and one of these guys, an ogre leadbelcher, is as good, if not better, than the new rules for the squig gobber. So £46 that is, by the way, and these guys work out to be like, I don't know, £6 each. Unbelievable.
So you ended up winning by having 3 models alive at the end, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I came on the other side of the table. I had one. What are these guys called again?
Lead belchers?
No, the ogres with the massive weapons.
What are they called? The name has just completely escaped me.
Yeah. Anyway,
the ones with the iron fists or whatever.
Yeah, they got massive weapons. One of them survived and managed to take out Belagar, which was really satisfying. I think each wound you get does 3 damage or something like that.
Yes.
So even though you half your wounds, you have to round up.
Yes, there's a tip. If you want to attack something that halves wounds, attack them with something that does odd numbers of wounds, because it always rounds up. There you go. There's my tip of the day.
Yeah. There's another picture because I like that moment. And you can see that these guys, I think one of them got shot off with your Iron Drakes, and you got another couple of wounds. But instead of piling into your Iron Drakes, I just thought, you know what? I'm going to bound over to your corner and get the final objective. And meanwhile, my Thunder Tusk killed off 6 of your Iron Drakes. So I think it killed off 24 wounds worth of models.
Yeah, it killed 6 Iron Drakes, and then the others ran away from battle shock. As you can imagine, they would.
There you go.
And a couple of comments we've had. Ghost Ace 901 says, where do you get the acrylic counters that you use in your scenario? They are from Litco. That's Litco. For all your Age of Sigmar acrylic token needs. And the game mat, if anyone's wondering, is from gamemat.eu as well.
Now, Corn on the Cob, what a lovely name. That's K with a KH. He said, when Rem wins, we all win. And I echo and second your statement there, Corn.
Well, I'm not sure about that. So I think I definitely learnt Thunder Tusk, you can't leave it around on full health. You have to damage it early. Just stick 3 wounds on it, and then it's not so dangerous anymore.
No, it's only D6 wounds it does.
Yeah, D6 wounds is far less scary than just 6 instant mortal wounds on a 2+.
Yeah. But
that on its own must be the scariest attack in the game.
I wouldn't say it was overpowered, though, because of that. It'd be overpowered if it didn't diminish.
Well, technically nothing can be overpowered because there's no point system. But what did you think of the point system that we actually used for this game, though?
What was it called?
I can't remember, but I put a link to it in the description of the battle report if people want to see it.
It was really, really good. It was really easy, and units of models either cost 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. And that's it. There might be 3.5 or 0.5, but you've got to get 15 points worth of models. So it's well, we chose 15 as the number, but it was really easy to use. I'm not sure if it's really intricately balanced as much as 8th edition was, but it doesn't send you to sleep.
I will say it's much quicker to build an army using that than it is in pretty much any edition of Warhammer, because in Warhammer it was always points per model, and then you've got the upgrades on top of that and all this magic items, and it just gets a bit crazy. With this, it's just a straight, okay, here you are, here's the size of your unit, here's how many points it is.
Yeah,
and that's regardless of whether you take banners or musicians or anything. So it's just assumed that you're going to make the unit as good as possible by taking banners in it.
Yeah. A unit that costs 1 point would be a basic rank and file unit. A unit that costs 2 points would be a specialist unit, like hammerers or man-eaters. And monsters are generally 3 to 4 points, and a character is generally 2 points.
So just at the first attempt of using it, I thought it was quite reasonable. It sped up, actually, the selection of our armies, because we didn't have to just put the armies out on the table and then look across and think, actually, it looks like you've got slightly too much. Let's just take that unit away. Oh, no, it looks like you've got too much. How about if I just halve the size of this unit and bring this guy on?
Yeah.
So it makes it quicker in that respect. But obviously, when you have scenarios like most of the ones we played that are skewed against one of the players, then you don't want balanced. But then you could still use point systems and just say, well, one side has 10 points, the other side has 15.
Yeah. Scott R's just called it Clash Comp.
That may well be it.
Clash Comp. It was really good. I looked down at Ashhag the Slaughter and the Orcs and Goblins. And Ashhag costs 3.5, which is as much as a Thunder Tusk costs, which I thought was a bit...
He does fly, though, and obviously he does have command abilities and things like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go.
Well.
Thanks to all our patrons, by the way. You make it possible.
They certainly do. They make all our Battle Report goodness possible. So, shall we move on to the next topic? Because this is something that might upset you, actually. So, I'm going to screen share and head over to Forge World with the Monstrous Arcanum.
Ooh.
So, now, ever since you purchased that Squig Gobber from Forge World, you've been just trembling with anticipation. There's been beads of perspiration working their way down your face each and every night. You've woken up in a cold sweat thinking, when am I going to get rules for that Squig Gobber? I don't want to use it as a rock lobber. I want its own rules.
Because the rock lobber was absolutely garbage.
Yeah, so your prayers have been answered. So let's go down and look at these monsters, shall we?
Wow.
So we're going to have a quick look at all of them. We're not going to go completely in depth because there are quite a few. So let's have a look at a Basilisk, first of all. 10 wounds, so it's not one of your bigger monsters. It does have a malignant gaze, though.
Nice.
Which starts getting worse after you take 2 wounds, actually. Everything on this guy. But that has 5 attacks, 3+, and then it's I don't like when they do this, where they have basically everything on every stat points to a different section.
Yeah.
It's never just right in front of you, is it? You have to go and dance around the page to find the rules for it. So on the roll of a d6, on 1 to 3, the unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On the roll of 4 to 5, they suffer 2 mortal wounds. And on the roll of a 6, they suffer 3 mortal wounds. Okay. So it's not really that complicated, but it just looks really convoluted, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's quite a nice ability, though. And then it's got this Vitriol Taint, which sounds really terrible. Any unit within 3 inches of any basilisks, roll a dice. On a 6, the poisonous aura takes down another victim, and they suffer a mortal wound. Okay, so it dishes out quite a few mortal wounds, and it's only got 10 wounds itself, 5+ save, so it's not that survivable. But it can dish out some mortal wounds. So it's got a purpose. And one of its attacks there does 3 damage, but you only get 1. So it's all right. where would you rate that on the tremendous meter, do you think, if we had Mitch in here? What do you think he'd say about that one?
I've never seen anyone use a basilisk, so it's hard to say how effective it could be. But I'd give it a safe 6.7 on the tremendous meter counter.
Yeah, and also you'll notice that, of course, they'll have keywords such as destruction, which are important for the new Grand Alliances, because there'll be certain units that have abilities that affect all destruction units.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep an eye on those. Bone Grinder Giant. I don't remember seeing one of these ever. 16 wounds, though, so it's one of the big boys. 4+ save. You can throw a boulder. The range of it diminishes as he takes wounds. Hits on a 5+ only.
Oosh.
But it does wound on a 2+, so it's like a cannonball that doesn't hit very easily.
How many wounds?
It does D6 wounds.
Oh.
And then in combat, it is similar to a giant with the attacks. D6 wounds with the D6 damage with the brutal kick, which has 1 attack, and then his club attacks diminish. But he starts off with 3d6, so it's pretty tasty actually, a little bit better than a giant. So maybe this is going to be the trend that runs through. Maybe everything is going to be slightly better than its equivalent in the other War Scrolls. Maybe that Squid Gobber is going to be far superior to the Rock Lobber. What do you think?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't it? Because it's a very elite model, and the fluff is fantastic. It's basically loads of night goblins that coax this giant squid, which looks like a giant kind of orange toad, into eating loads of miniature squigs, and then it kind of gets sick and spews them out, and they're all like little acid flame balls that it shoots out.
It only makes sense that it would be far superior, but we'll get to that in a minute. So let's have a quick look at the rules for this one. So Timber, obviously it falls over like a giant. I'll bite your head off. So before it makes an attack, pick an enemy model and roll 2d6. And if the result is at least double the enemy's wounds characteristic. Okay, so you think about with the giant, it's 1d6. So that limits you to devouring models of 3 wounds or less.
Yeah.
With this guy, you're rolling 2d6, so he could just bite the head off of a character, a 5-wound hero.
Yeah.
Without too much trouble. Because on 2d6, obviously, your average is 7. But you need to be doubling. So for anything with 3 wounds, you're going to be taking that out pretty easily. And 5-wound characters, you've got a fairly reasonable chance of just eating them. Then we've got, when making pile-in moves, he can move 6 inches rather than 3, which is always nice. Obvious target. They can't claim cover. Well, not surprising. Drunken Stagger, if you roll a double, it falls over. Yeah, so just like a giant in that respect. So it's just a better version of a giant, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that I'll bite your head off rule. That looks like fun.
Yeah, then we go on to the Carmine Dragon. You'd expect this to be good. 14 wounds, 3+ save, so pretty tasty already there.
This model's over £100.
Well, it better have some pretty tremendous rules then. So it's fangs. It has 3 attacks, and each one can do d6 damage with -3 rend.
That's awesome.
And the to wound starts on a 2+ as well.
That's awesome.
And then it doesn't even diminish down to 4+ until it's taken 10 wounds.
Yeah, amazing.
So that is really good. I like that.
It moves 16 inches. That's huge.
The claws also starts off with 6 attacks, which also do 2 damage each and have -2 rend. So there's just a lot of rend being thrown around on this beastie. So this guy's looking tremendous already. Let's have a look at some of his abilities then. So each time he suffers a mortal wound, he has a 5+ save against it. Nice, obviously.
These are brilliant. Putting these War Scrolls available just means that more people are going to buy the Warhammer Forged models, surely.
You would think so. And he can unbind a spell. And if he successfully unbinds a spell, he gains a wound as well.
And look, he's an Order Dragon.
Oh. Yes, that is a very important order. So if you look through your War Scrolls and see if you have things that affect order units.
Yeah, lovely.
Then let's have a look at this ability. My voice is starting to fail. So he can unleash magical energy and shooting phase, blah, 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 blah. Unit within 10 inches, and you and your opponent roll a dice. Add the Carmine Dragon's bravery to your dice roll and the bravery of the target to your opponent's. Now his is 10. So you're probably going to be winning this roll off.
Nice.
The unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the difference in score. And if they have the death or demon keyword, you can re-roll your dice if you want. So yeah, because I was thinking units with the death keyword are going to have a higher bravery because they're all bravery 10 really, like zombies and whatnot. So the ability to re-roll the dice against those guys balances that out, I would say. So yeah, I was going to say not very good against death, but it's good against everyone really. So that's pretty tremendous. And it was looking tremendous enough without that. Just with its attacks, it was looking pretty tasty.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at this one as well. All of the models, friend or foe, within 6 inches have -1 to their bravery. So yeah, you don't want it near your own troops, really. Just send it in on its own, chomp some people up.
It's a great model to have as a sort of a monster that belongs to neither side of the army, that roams around independently. And maybe the object of the game is to, you know, take down the dragon or kill each other. That could be a little fun scenario.
Or let it kill your opponent's army, because it probably would, looking at it.
Yep. What else we got in?
Yeah, it can heal, it can save against mortal wounds, and it deals out tremendous damage. I'm going to say that would be very high on the tremendous meter.
That would be up there, 9 or 10.
Now, surely this guy's going to be a 10. The Colossal Squig. I'm going to read the description for this guy. It's not a very cinematic description, but I'll go for it anyway. A Colossal Squig is a single model. Enormous, improbable, and quite insane. These fungoid beasts possess insatiable appetites and boundless energy, which, coupled with their mountainous size, means they can unleash untold havoc and tremendous damage in battle. Their impossibly large, fleshy mouths can messily devour swathes of foes in an instant, while their rush to eat usually means anything that escapes their grisly jaw is squashed flat by the beast as it careens headlong towards its next meal. So, Colossal Squig.
Well, something that does untold damage, that's off the tremendous meter, surely.
Anything that's a squig and colossal, surely, is going to be good. I'm not sure this is going to be as good as the Squig Gobber, but we'll get to that in a minute. So 16 wounds. That's a good start, isn't it?
Yep.
Just had to cough there for a second, turning into Mr. Reef, perhaps. Enormous Jaws, 8 attacks. Hits on a 2+ to start with. Wow. So until you get 4 wounds off it, and even then it's a 3+. So it's hitting you on a 3+ until you get 8 wounds off it.
That's amazing.
Wounds on a 3+, -2 rend, D3 damage with 8 attacks.
Wow.
That is tremendous. And the Trampling Feet, 2d6 attacks. Well, it drops to d6 pretty fast, actually.
I think this monster would put a fitting end to Archaon. Get this guy into Archaon and finish him once and for all in the jaws of a Colossal Squig. What a great ending.
Well, I have a feeling that its special abilities are going to be even more tremendous, actually. So let's go on to those, shall we? Avalanche of Hungry Squig. So if you roll a double when determining its charge range, re-roll hit rolls of 1 with its Trampling Feet attacks. Yeah, okay, that's a nice little extra. Swallowed Whole, for each 6 you roll for any of your wound rolls with the Colossal Squig's enormous jaws, D3 mortal wounds are inflicted instead of normal wounds. Now, on the face of it, that sounds good, but it's already got a -2 rend. So, yeah, against your more heavily armored targets, it's probably going to help. And also against anything that has an ability where maybe if it rolls 6 for a save, it can put a wound back on you. Anything that helps you prevent them from taking an armor save and just giving them a mortal wound instead is going to help. I'm sure there probably are some occasions where it actually works out worse to do mortal wounds than regular wounds.
Yeah.
But like if you're attacking something that has a mediocre armor save with your -2 rend, but it has like a 4+ save against mortal wounds, then it would actually benefit from you having that ability. So in certain situations, it could actually work against you, that one. gushing awful. That sounds absolutely horrendous. That sounds like something that you've deleted from your internet search history. So,
I'll have to try that one.
when a colossal squig dies, it comes apart at the seams. This just sounds horrible. When it's slain, roll a d6 for each unit, friend or foe, within 3 inches. On the roll of a 4+, the unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. Yeah, okay, so when it's almost dead, just send it headlong into the enemy lines, kamikaze it in there, and it'll blow up. Okay, that's pretty good.
Love this guy already, but you just charge him straight in to the thickest part of the enemy units and just go crazy.
Let's got another ability here. Dinner's dinner. So, beginning of every combat phase, there are no enemy units within 3 inches, but there are friendly units within 3 inches. Roll a dice for each friendly unit. On the roll of a 4+, it suffers a mortal wound as the colossal squig has a crafty snack. Okay, so you don't want it just sitting around with your own troops in the combat phase.
No.
Keep everyone at a safe distance, definitely.
This is the monster, really, that the Night Goblins really needed. Because Night Goblins on their own are less than pathetic. So having a colossal squig just, makes it all perfect.
Any of you goblin experts out there, it has the Moon Clan keyword. So is there any interesting synergy relating to that it would gain? Any of you goblin experts in the comments, let us know. And I'm sure Mr. Rem can keep an eye on that.
Yeah, well, I think if you've got a goblin, a Night Goblin, if you've got a Night Goblin Shaman, some of their spells affect Moon Clan units. So it might get some combat buffs or something like that. I don't know. Not that it needs it, but what's it? Etin?
An Etin is a 2-headed giant, essentially. It's got 13 wounds. I imagine it's going to be quite similar to the giants, but let's see. Because often they're depicted as being slightly smaller than giants. So, Crushing Fist, 2 attacks, potentially d6 damage. It starts off hitting you on a 2+. That does diminish, though. It never becomes truly awful, though. And only 1 attack, though, so you really want to be using it early before you're wounded, because even on a 3+, having just 1 attack is still a bit risky. Stomp, d6 until it's really, really heavily damaged and drops to d3. That one does 2 damage. So, yeah, it's pretty good on the whole damage output there. See what abilities it's got that's going to help out, though. So, 2-headed horror. A cursed Etin must always try to charge an enemy unit if it is able. Okay, and it can also make a charge even if it retreated or ran that turn. That's interesting. What do you think of that?
It's nice to see the stomp come back in this game. Very nice.
What do you think of it being able to run and charge, for example? And it's got to move 10 as well when it's unharmed, so that can be quite a decent distance you've got there.
Yeah, I love it. Pezapoo's got a converted giant with 2 heads.
Yeah, George and Mildred. I'm not sure if he still got it.
Really?
I know he got rid of his ogre army. I'm not sure if he kept that.
Right.
We'll have to find out. I hope he did keep it. Then, Cannibal Feast. The Cursed Etin heals d3 wounds at the end of any combat phase in which it slew enemy models with its Crushing Fist attack.
Nice.
Yeah, so that'll probably come up once or twice in the game. Get you some extra wounds back. It's never a bad thing. And it also has a Gibbering Curse from the Heads Arguing. So, roll 2d6 for each affected unit. So that is any unit within 3 inches of a Cursed Etin. And if the roll is higher than the unit's current bravery characteristic, it suffers d3 mortal wounds. Wow, that's quite good. 2d6. So if you put that around a lot of units that have mediocre or low bravery, just dishing out mortal wounds for fun. That's pretty tasty.
Up till now, all these have had pretty awesome rules, I'd say. And were...
They have. I think they're only going to get better as we go down as well.
Right.
Now, let's have a look at the Dread Maw. So 14 wounds. Cavernous Maw. Again, that sounds like something from your search history. 3 attacks, 3+2+, and the rend is affected by how damaged it is. So it starts off at -3, which is tremendous. D6 damage as well on that. The coil's attack starts off with 2d6, and you have to put a few wounds on it before it diminishes, and then it stays at pretty much d6 until it's practically dead. 4+4+, yeah, so that, I don't think too much of the writhing coils, but the cavernous maw is nice. Abilities, it came from below. So, set up the Dreadmaw within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield and more than 9 inches from any enemy models. Right, so that's instead of deploying it. It just pops up at the start in your first movement phase. So that, well, for one thing, it's not going to get shot if the enemy goes first. So there's one thing to keep in mind.
I think this is a fabulous one to have in a scenario as well, isn't it? This could be another random creature that's just moving in random directions, appearing. It will be like that film Tremors, won't it? Where the monsters come out the ground and snatch people up.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon's finest hour. So you could put it on the opponent's table edge if you want, as long as it's 9 inches away from their models. And with a movement of 3d6, that's pretty tasty. You're going to be able to get right among them at the start of the game. Reptile worm, it can ignore intervening scenery, but not enemy models. Okay, that's good. Hide it behind a piece of terrain, and then just move straight through it as if it's not there. And when it charges, you can re-roll hit rolls of 1 with its cavernous maw.
Wow.
Okay, so that's a little extra there. And the armored hide, impervious to harm. So when it suffers a wound or mortal wound, roll the d6 on a 4+, that wound is ignored. So that's going to come after its regular armor save.
Wow. Yeah, so that's he's putting him at 8 or 9 on the tremendous meter.
I think his survivability is a big thing, isn't it? Not having to deploy him, 4+ ward save effectively. The fact that he can hide behind terrain and then just move through it at will. I think that's a big thing for him. The actual damage output is quite good, but the survivability is something that not a lot of things have in Age of Sigmar, and he certainly does. So that's nice. Familiar warriors. Now then. So these guys, 3 wounds each. So that's a bit less than an ogre. And their weapons, 3 attacks with that one, 3+3+, -2 rend, which is always nice to see. Or the hand weapon, which isn't quite as good, but you would think that that has some kind of bonus to go with it. And banner bearer, enemy units subtract 1 from their bravery if they're within 3 inches of one of these banners. Okay, so not too exciting. Hunting horn, if the unit carries a horn, then you can add 1 to their run and charge rolls. Okay, how much do you know about familiars generally? Because they're a bit of an old school creature, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been around in the Games Workshop pantheon for a very long time. They're basically dwellers in swamps, and they look a bit like a cross between a rhinoceros, baby elephant on 2 legs, and yeah, and they carry like clubs.
Well known for having a single eye.
There is an alternative army that's been written for army book that's been written for these guys, where they have lots of different choices. But yeah, they were always strange and wonderful creatures. I think they appeared in Albany, which was the old Games Workshop reference to Britain, really. And they were like swamp-like creatures.
Albion.
Albion, that's it, not Albany. Albion, thank you. We should get a move on with this, I think, because we've been on air for an hour and a half. Maybe we could look at the rest of these next week.
I think maybe after we finish with these guys, we may have to, because I've got quite a bit of the page to scroll down. There's quite a lot in here.
Wow, there's a lot of new stuff in there.
Yep, so we may have to leave people in suspense regarding the Squid Gobber, because it's surely got to be so tremendous that we can't fit it into this show.
Well,
let's look at these abilities then.
Yeah.
So, this is an interesting one. If you wound a familiar, in your hero phase, all of its wounds are restored. So you have to kill it outright. So that would say to me that you'd want to take multiple small units of them rather than a big unit. And then if all the multiple units all take just a couple of wounds, then they're just going to get them all back. So that's quite nice. Vile magic saturates the glyphs, blah, 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 blah. Wound rolls of a 6 with all Bale glyph weapons inflict double damage. Okay, so that's pretty tasty. Sundering blows. If they're armed with 2 Bale glyph hand weapons, then you reroll hit rolls of 1, which is pretty standard for people that are armed with 2 identical weapons, isn't it? Then Shrouding Mists. They despise light, apparently. You can add 1 to Ephemer's saves against shooting attacks. And if the shooting attack inflicts a mortal wound on them, roll a d6, and on roll of a 5, it's ignored. Okay, then.
Cool, man. I mean, I think there's only a couple or 3 varieties of these guys. So it's difficult to have.
Yeah, it's not like a monster where you can just stick it into your army. You'd really want to have a full force of these guys, I think, wouldn't you, if you were going to get them?
Yeah, as with all these, they make really nice scenario monsters. I mean, one objective you could have, for say the Colossal Squig, which is my favourite. You know, you could have one game where your Night Goblins have to capture it, and if they do, then you can use it in the next game you have. Could be quite fun.
And just to give people a little preview of what we'll get to next time, Incarnate Elemental of Beasts. Right, so we'll finish going through all those on next week's show.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome the Ogre Stronghold to the chat, who I've not seen here before, but I know he's got a YouTube channel, and he puts up all YouTube videos that people have made regarding ogres. And 3 years ago, I think, they put up my ogre video. So I did a little army on parade for them. So thanks very much for that. Love your channel.
There's quite a lot of other new names in there that I haven't seen before. Luke Atkinson. I don't think I've seen that name before. A few others in there as well. Oh, Pezapoo's dropped in.
Pezapoo. Pezapoo, do you still have your double-headed giant or your Etin?
Now, were you keeping an eye on the comments when people were supposed to identify those models, by the way?
I was going to get round to that. If you've just joined us, you missed a new section of our show called What the Hell Is That?
Which is what people usually say about this show anyway, but we've actually turned it into a subsection of the show now.
That's right. So what the hell is that? Me or Andy will present to you a model or models from the Games Workshop pantheon of weird and wonderful models, and you have to
identify them.
Identify is the word. Identify what the hell is that, and where's it from? Maybe even be as specific as what year or what sub company. There's a big clue. So our first one was this wonderful specimen. I'm just pressing the screen share. There we go, professional as ever. It's running away from me.
The clock is ticking.
All right.
While you're sorting that out, I'd like people to comment on what they think of my luxurious hair that is getting ever longer and more out of control, and it just can't be tamed, quite frankly.
It's the Witchfinder General. All right, so here is our first. What is that? What is that? I don't know where it's gone. There it is. Where's that from? It's obviously a dwarf smoking a pipe. There you go. And he's wearing pink. He's wearing a pink hat. And I took that off the colour scheme provided on the box where this was from. So looking for your comments, I didn't think anyone identified this, which is shocking. Call yourselves Warhammer fans. But here is your answer, ladies and gentlemen. It is a dwarf from the infamous Dwarf Goblobber. And here it is. 1987. Games Workshop produced this box set, and basically this is before Goblin Doom Divers. The dwarves in the fluff ran out of stones to throw. So what they did, they ran out into the Goblin army, knocked a few out, tied them up, and started shooting them back into the Goblin armies, and terrified goblins ran away. So
and rightly so.
I managed to get my hands on this model, which these cost like £100 now. You know, if you want to get them, they just don't make them anymore. So I managed to get this a few years ago for a lot cheaper than that. So I'm, you know, busy painting this one. And included in this, you get a nice dwarf chef as well, roasting a pig. So
I remember when I was first exposed to miniatures at all, this was the kind of model that I would have been looking at in the magazines. So it's just a classic, isn't it?
Love it. The Gobblobber, the dwarf onager.
$9.95. You definitely wouldn't pick it up for that now.
No, I mean, I remember in 1987, $9.95 felt like quite a lot of money, but for that you could buy a whole unit. So there you go. And our second and last model for this edition of What Is That is this baby. What the hell is that?
Well, what the hell is it? It looks like a bunny barbarian.
Bunny barbarian. Well, there was a games designer. He's still around. His name was Bob Ollie, and he made some wonderful models, including the dwarf squats, which were 40k dwarves, which they don't make anymore. But Bob Ollie started up his own company later on. But in 1987, he produced a line of models called Gothic Dwarves. And there you go. I'm on the Stuff of Legends website, which catalogues all Games Workshop models. And you can see there, if I could just make that a little bit bigger, there you go. You can see some wonderfully characterful kind of wild wood dwarves.
Riding on each other's backs down there as well.
Yeah, there's a piggyback one. Now these ones, if you can get your hands on these, you're doing really well because they're really expensive now. But back in the day, £2.50 for 5. These will go for between £10 and £20 each. Now, as you see, there's the range. Even if you can see my mouse there, you've even got like a wizardy dwarf. So we are going back.
I think I might have that one actually.
Really? I'll buy it off you.
I think I'd have that one or one that's very similar.
I've got the standard bearer one, I've got this one, and I've got that one. But they're really hard to get now. So there you go. That was the first edition.
Now, before you get off that page, I will say,
yeah,
when I see that nowadays, the one thing I think of, it's just surprising to me that it doesn't have red X's across some of them, because people will post pictures of that on like a Facebook group and they'll cross out the ones they have. Like, I'm looking for these miniatures, and then when they find one, they'll put a new cross through it.
Yeah.
That's the only time you really see pictures of these guys anymore.
I love this website. So if you're an avid collector of Games Workshop stuff, take a look at that. But they don't just cover Games Workshop. They cover a bunch more. So that was Bob Ollie's Dwarves for you. And his most famous one, I think, which costs like something like you can get for like £100 on its own. Yeah, there we go. The Dwarf Booze Brothers. Now, check these babies out. This is going back a real long way, but there, £2.50. If you look on eBay now, that costs more than 10 times the amount.
Yeah, for anyone that's wondering what the new dwarf models are going to look like, look at that Megabot there.
Yeah, why did I get rid of that model? I used to have it. It was wicked. Yeah. And he made some Black Hawks as well, which was significantly bigger. So there you go. Walking down memory lane there with Mr. Remington Steele.
Okay, so the final fairly brief topic, because it is only a rumour. The Orcs, the rumour going round is that they're getting a new monster, new cavalry, new infantry, probably a kind of a sub-faction like the Fire Slayer sized for the Orcs. What do you think?
I think that I'm excited. I think they're going to be as different as things can be. I think they're going to be a different size. They might be bigger than the Orcs we have currently. I think they might even be more technological.
You think they're going to be different in such a way that you'd feel inferior if you were using the old Orcs because they want you to buy the new ones? Or do you think they'll complement the old ones nicely?
I think within a couple of years or so, they will probably just stop producing the old style ones, like they'll do with dwarves now. So in the long term, you'll only get these ones, and in say 10 years' time, these will be the new orcs that everyone knows and hopefully likes.
And then people on shows like this, like the Jimmy and Nigel show in 15 years' time, with two people who haven't even got into the hobby yet hosting it, they'll be looking at a classic old miniatures page, and it'll have things on it like the Forge World Squig Gobber,
Yeah,
and a couple of Black Orcs. Oh, as painted by legendary painter Remington Steele. Oh, I remember that guy from back in the day.
well, the Black Orcs are already really pretty old models. You know, the Savage Orcs are like 6-year-old models now, right? They came out in 2010. The Arachnarad Spider, 6 years old. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't think they'll be kind of naked, but their clothing will be different than anything we've seen. Just like the Stormcast different and the Bloodbound are different in the way they look. I think that will be the same with the Orcs. So there might be some amount of flesh you can see. But how they dress, I'm not sure.
Well, in the comments, the Ogre Stronghold thinks apparently they'll all be Black Orcs.
Oh.
Which would be fine for you because you've already got quite a sizable selection of Black Orcs.
Yeah.
To team them up with.
Yeah, I can see that. If you think Stormcast are like a human upgrade to normal humans, maybe we're going to get an Orc upgrade for the new models, you know? But you know how the Fire Slayers have this sort of decorated helmet that attaches onto their hair, you know, and that's become part of what they dress. I think the Orcs are going to have something similar.
Maybe a helmet that attaches to their butt cheek.
Yeah,
you can still actually see all of it.
I think that's what they do. They tie things up to a thing, like ogres have gut plates, you know, and that keeps a theme to the army and the way they dress. So I don't know, maybe they'll have giant clown shoes.
Well, it's all just reckless and wild speculation at this point. So the one thing we can definitely take from this show is that you need a colossal squig in your life. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. Yeah. I like it a lot.
Are you adding that to your shopping cart as we speak?
Well, either that or the Morgul. Because as you'll see next week, hopefully, there'll be another battle report up for our patrons and fans, right?
At some point there will be. I'm not sure about next week. It depends if the pledges come flying in and increase the rate of battle reportage.
Well, it is fair to say that I'll be using my vampire counts for the first time ever, and they're awesome, but I don't have any monsters in that. So do I buy a Terrorgeist or an undead dragon, or do I get this Morgul character, which is like a giant, like, torso with a giant mouth that spirits around and just gobbles things up? It looks awesome.
Well, apparently MC1 Gamer wants 2 of them.
Yeah, they look wicked. And I'm going to Warhammer World tomorrow to meet up with Mr. Reef Beastman, and we're going to have a game. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to photograph it, and I'm going to do a battle report, and I actually put that up on my channel. So if you've not subscribed to Remington Steele YouTube channel, do it now, and make sure I can get enough subscribers to gloat at Andy.
I think people had forgotten that you actually had your own channel. When was the last time you put something up on there?
I've been flat out boosting your channel.
Was it about 8 months ago?
Hey, listen, when I joined your show, you had about 200 subscribers. Now you're in the thousands.
Yeah, I'm not sure I quite remember it that way. We'll see about that. MC1 Gamer says say hi to Reefy for us. So yeah, you have to say hi to Reefy individually for each of the current 66 viewers of the show.
I will. I'll get some photos of us embracing, and we will surely make fun of Games Workshop staff. It goes without saying. And we will maybe take some, you know, unsavory pictures of us doing things to the Stormcast statue outside. Maybe defiling it, as beastmen like to do. And we might even get to look around the exhibition.
And you might even get thrown out for defiling statues.
It's going to be good. I'm bringing my ogres. So Ogre Stronghold, you're going to have the best ogre video produced ever on your channel tomorrow.
Oh, by the way, Dreddy says that you need to get 50 fell bats for your vampire counts.
Do you know what? I've actually got 2 bases worth of those things. And
Are they bat swarms, though?
sorry, they're bat
Yeah,
swarms.
you got fell bats, the most hideous miniatures available.
Just looking at those miniatures, you just don't really want to paint them. You don't know why. You don't know why. You know that whatever you do, the paint job's going to be terrible. You know.
Yeah, some of us have that feeling, whatever miniatures we're looking at. So, I think it's about time to start wrapping up, isn't it?
It is. I've got my guitar ready.
So, of course, thanks to our wonderful audience. And if they would like to see more battle reports, they should probably check out our Patreon page, linked in the description. Other things you'll find in the description include links to the Facebook group, which you should be joining for all your latest Andy and Rem and Age of Sigmar related news, rumours, and so on. And the various other links down there that I'm not going to reveal right now because I would have to open the page and actually look to remind myself. So, Mr. Rem, I've bought you a few seconds there with that promotional babble. Are you tuned up and ready to go?
Yeah. I've no idea what to play, though. So I might just play the intro music as an outro again, but in a different style.
Well, I think you can come up with something. I think if you just start strumming away, I think words will come. How about, let's look to the audience. Let's see what they've been talking about, and then we'll spawn a song out of that. So, people talking about, how about orcs? A song about black orcs.
Yeah, how about we do the game where I sing a line and then you sing a line as a retort?
Well, unfortunately, my voice.
I'll get lost. You've been talking all night. Let's do it.
No, actually, I'm going to send you, it's going to be a bit of a surprise for people. I'm going to send you a message now on Facebook for an idea of a song.
Now, if Mickey Jenver says, what about the Thunder Tusk song? Which is a good choice. I actually sing that at the end of the battle report that Andy put up the day before yesterday. Oh, yes, I can see that. Oh, God. You expect me just to pull out these things
Yes.
out my arse without any rehearsal?
Yes. Okay. He's got the song idea. I'm going to start screen sharing the beautifully photoshopped logo. No pressure, Mr. Rem.
Okay, I'm that good. I've just come up with it now. I see a green oak and I want to paint it black. I see a green oak and I want to take it back. I've got the old oaks, but they're not as good as the new ones. I've got loads of oaks I've recently painted, don't wanna buy new ones, yeah. I see a green oak and I want to paint it black, because the black oaks have one more goddamn attack. Yes, sir.